By the way, I don't appreciate the snickering over owning a video store. Hi, boys.
Hi, boy.
Hi, Aaron.
Thanks so much for coming out here. We're going to be able to give you guys a chance to ask the brothers questions. I believe we have a microphone right there in the aisle, so when we get to that, we'll let you know. As far as South by Southwest is concerned, you know, a lot of people associate, you know, your early days with the puffy chair in 2005, but really Austin and film comes earlier than that. I was wondering if you could talk about those early funny years.
Yeah, we moved here in a wagon in 1917, actually.
It was a gravy train with biscuit wheels.
Yeah, and you know all those pictures of the Capitol when it was a dirt road. Jay and I actually paved that road ourselves.
We paved it with DV tape.
Yes, we did. Yeah, Jay moved here in '91 to go to college, and I came soon after in '95. And I mean, for those of you who have been here for that long, or even not that long, it was a very different town, but the spirit has always been the same of just like, oh, there's Rodriguez and there's Richard Linklater, and like these guys are just like wearing T-shirts and jeans and sneakers, and they're normal guys making art. And that was so inspiring to us because we grew up in New Orleans, and the artists there were all 50-year-old black men and older jazz musicians. And we were like, well, we're probably not going to be able to be that.
But we tried super hard.
We tried really hard.
To be 55-year-old black musician.
But the Duplass brothers are just not the Neville brothers. It's just not going to happen.
We will forever live under that cloud.
Yeah, exactly. I don't look good in a tight fishnet shirt. It just doesn't work.
And a thick gold chain.
Yeah. But yeah, it was really like so exciting to us that just like normal people were making art about normal stuff. And so that's really like, I think we kind of figured out who we were by watching guys like Rick and Robert Rodriguez. And then we lived here for a long time just making a shit ton of bad short films, really. It's just what we did for the next 10 years.
So what you know, nowadays you guys are doing so much, it's just incredible. Jay with Transparent, you guys with Togetherness. You have 2 films here that you produce, the documentary ASPERGER'S Are Us, as well as Linas Phillips' Rainbow Time. So go see those guys. You produce, you write, you direct, you act. Where did all of it come from, like originally, as far as what was actually inspiring you? I mean, you wanted to make things, but did you have lofty goals up front of what you wanted to do, or did you just kind of stumble into all of this?
It's just money, you know, really is what it comes down to. We wanted to be
just getting paid,
getting paid,
you know?
You know?
Because those 12 years in Austin just making art and distributing on our front lawn, we got so rich.
Yeah.
So freaking rich.
Right.
I mean,
these
honestly,
haircuts don't come cheap, y'all.
I don't know if y'all noticed, but I'm wearing a blazer.
That's right.
So just like deal with it. Honestly, we grew up in New Orleans. Like Mark said, the only model of being an artist was like to be a musician. So that's what we were doing for a long time. We did that here as well. But we're definitely more obsessed with movies that were coming across our front lawn on cable. Came to our neighborhood in '83, and we never thought we would actually be able to make movies and make money. I mean, like when Mark was saying, like when we first saw Rick on the street, we're like, that's a person who made a movie. Oh, right. People make movies. They're just not like pumped over a pipeline, you know.
And more importantly, he's not wearing a beret. He's like a normal guy.
Yeah.
Like could we possibly do this?
And his last name's not Coppola, basically. So, honestly, we graduated from UT, and we were kind of in bands together, and we were making movies with our friends in town, which at the time were like, the Zellner brothers and Brian Poiser and John Bryant and all these great filmmakers now. And we were just having fun. And I think in the backs of our minds, we were like, it'd be so great if something happened one day. But we just didn't really expect it. And it really does come from what you were saying, is just making stuff, which is what we've always done together as brothers, just always wanting to make something creative and see if we can do something that's good. And it took us a long time before we could do anything good. And then I would say probably the biggest moment. I mean, we had big moments along the way. We got our first short into Sundance, all that stuff happened, but we were still making stuff. But I think when we were making our first studio feature, Cyrus, we were on our way to a wardrobe fitting with Marissa Tomei, and we're sitting in the parking lot. Oh my God, we're gonna like tell Marissa Tomei what to wear. This is weird.
I've dreamed about this before.
I've dreamed of it, yes. And we got
it went really well too, and it was so exciting.
We got a call on our cell phone from Brian Poiser, who was about to make Lovers of Hate, and I think this is where we were at. The economics were, he had $20,000 and he needed 25, and that 5 had dropped out, and he was basically going to shoot like the next day, and he was like, I need $5,000 to make this movie. And it was the first time Mark and I were in a position where we had $5,000. And it was so easy for us to just be like, oh, of course. And we gave him $5,000. His movie happened. It got into competition at Sundance. But also, we did what we always did with our friends, is we watched cuts with them. We gave them advice on what we thought. I mean, that's just what we were doing as a filmmaking community. But we became executive producers on that movie, and we thought nothing of it at all.
Yeah, it was really just being a friend more than a producer is what it felt like in the moment.
And now we produce a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and that process has really continued. You know, we like to tribe up, as we call it. We find this industry very difficult, and Jay and I are fairly vulnerable and anxious and depressive at times. And so we like to band up with all of our friends and kind of lean on each other. And so a lot of the producing we do is really like, you know, Linas Phillips is a friend of ours, and he's like, I've got this movie idea. And so we said, okay, we got some money, and let's help you out, and we'll go do it. And ASPERGER'S, the doc playing here, is directed by the cameraman that I worked with on The League for like 5 years, who I was friends with. And you know, he showed us this movie, and we're like, yes, we'll watch the movie. And we're like, oh, fuck, we're going to have to watch Alex's shitty movie and tell him how bad it is. And it was good. And we're like, great, so let's go help him make this movie. So that's been kind of a really organic process to becoming quote-unquote producers, which is something that we're really liking more and more of lately.
But beyond working with friends and
Yeah.
colleagues, you guys have been so prolific producing. I mean, I feel like every year here you've had like at least 2 or 3 films. Is there something that you can see like a common through line of something about these projects that really like excites you, or if there are any guiding philosophies, whether it be conscious or you're just thinking about it for the first time right now?
Yeah, it's weird. It's always hard for us to see that. It's almost easier for audiences to see that kind of stuff, and then they point it out to us, and then we're like, yeah, that's what we're doing. That's our theme. But something came out lately that keeps hitting us over and over again is when people talk about our show Togetherness, they talk about how unique the relationship is between my character and Steve Zissis's character, between Alex and Brett. And they say, they're just so loving and sweet and supportive of each other. I've never seen guys interact that way. How did you even conceive to make a relationship with that? It's so unique. And we were like, oh, that's different? We're like, because that's just kind of how Jay and I are with each other. And
What do other guys do? They just like punch each other in the nuts?
yeah.
Like nonstop?
Dude, I fucking love you. Yeah, punch him back. Punch him back in the balls. And so I think if there's anything that we've seen that's tied us to like what we're looking for, and you'll see it in Rainbow Time, you'll see it in Asperger's or Us, is like that ability to be very, very honest with your comedy and with your storytelling, but that honesty normally comes with a certain kind of acerbic, pinpointing darkness, and often kind of trashing the characters. And if there's anything in the stuff we make, it's like an honest approach to stuff, but also an inherent sweetness to it that we tend to be attracted to over and over again. So I think that might be one, I don't know if there's a common theme, that might be something.
I mean, the other thing I think is just personal connections, which we just tend to let things like ooze in sideways a little bit. I mean, like Linas Phillips's movie, we're really good friends with him. He had this idea, it was really special, and he also was kind of in a place in his life where he's like, I'm gonna die, if I don't make this movie. And
that's how you get people to finance your movie. You just go, it's not a big deal, no pressure. I'm gonna die if I don't get a chance to make this.
But
no biggie.
yeah, feeling that personal connection. I don't know. It's more of an organic. I mean, people are always like, "Oh, are you developing? Are you reading scripts and stuff?" And it's like we don't have a ton of time to read scripts. It's something that has to happen.
No, I think that's a good point.
Through osmosis.
We don't waste time on traditional development. People ask us, like, how are you so prolific? How do you make so much stuff? And I think the thing is, everything that we attempt to make, we make. So there's not like, oh, there's 19 movies we're talking about, and we're only going to make one of them. And the way we do that is people come to us with either a solid project at a various phase where they've got a script and they're ready to go, and it's cheap to make. And we always tell people, like, look, we're not going to give you a lot of money. We'll give you enough to make it. If it hits, you'll share a ton of the profits, but you're going to live and die by your work. Or it's something that Jay and I will actually have an idea about. For instance, like movies like The One I Love or Your Sister's Sister were movies that we kind of started off as a company, and there were ideas we had, and we went and pitched them to a filmmaker, and we said, would you like to run with this idea? We'll produce it. One of us will be in it. That's another form that we work a lot with. But to the point of that, I think it's important that you try not to spend a lot of time taking meetings, bullshitting about movies that you may eventually make one day. And we try to spend a lot of time saying, like, do you have a dream movie that you can make for under $100,000 that we can help you with that's practical? Like, those are the kind of things we really respond to.
Yeah, and I think that answers the question, because everyone is constantly asking us, how do we do all the stuff that we do? Part of it is we just don't socialize ever. That's something that, we have young kids. We've just given that up for the time being.
Part of it is we're awesome, too.
Yeah, we're pretty fucking cool.
We're incredible. Yeah. Have you seen that movie, The Incredibles, that was written about us? Have you seen that?
I've always admired your humility.
Thank you.
But yeah, the idea that if you know anything about Hollywood, at most like 1 in 20 movies that are being considered get made, and for us it's like 19 out of 20 movies get made. So we really don't take anything on unless it's like very obvious to us and personal, and it's just like I don't know, we need it to really matter and mean something on so many levels for us to take it on. But we also have like developed models, like even from the very beginning, after we did our first movie, The Puffy Chair, we're gonna make Baghead, and we were talking to studios about making Baghead big, but we kind of figured this thing out that made it okay for us to be pitching the movie and to not like die if like people wouldn't greenlight it or whatever, as we realized we could make the movie for $50,000 in Austin if people didn't want to do it our way or were being too difficult or rejected us or whatever it would be. And so we kind of went into these pitch meetings with this idea that like, we're making this movie in August in Austin. It's happening. If you would like to be a part of it and give us a lot of money, that'd be great. But if not, we're still making the movie. And that's what ended up happening. We made it for, a little more than $50,000. We had been making some money writing movies, and we sold it for a hell of a lot more at Sundance. And so we've constantly employed that tactic that this movie is going to get made, and we often think of lots of levels that it could exist at. But it almost always happens at that bottom level. And that has turned out to be a great thing, actually.
One more follow-up, and then I want to turn it over to you guys for questions. You mentioned Hollywood, and you guys live in Los Angeles. Like what you're doing is so antithetical to how Hollywood works. I mean, even as all these models have just kind of busted in the post-internet whatever age, do you guys feel like, I mean, even though you've done studio work before, do you feel like outsiders in Los Angeles? Do you feel like you're bucking the system from within?
We don't feel necessarily that we are diametrically opposed to Hollywood as a whole. We definitely sort of have one foot in the system and one foot out the system. And I think that there's a healthy way to sort of approach making stuff when you're at like our level, which I would describe as like, nobody's going to give us $100 million to make a movie and just let us do whatever we want to do. Like, we're not that. They might give us like a smaller amount of money and give us some creative autonomy. That's cool. But our whole approach has always been, we will never make a movie for more money than we think we can make it back, even if the movie ends up being not great. That's like the key for us, is like mitigate your risk. So it's like, even if we totally fuck this movie up and it sucks, just because this person is in it and the script is about this and it's in this genre, we'll at least make that money back. And there is an immense creative freedom when you walk into a project thinking like, even if we shit the bed, we're gonna be okay. And it frees you up to just go nuts a little bit. And that has been a real key to our process. And it was the way we started because we had no connections and nobody was gonna give us any money. And then we got to the phase where like, oh, everybody wants to give us money. And we had this crazy realization where like we had achieved the goal of like, Hollywood will give us money to make our stuff. And we looked at each other and we're like, it's kind of better if we do it on our own. And that's really what we continue to do.
Hey, gang, you want to ask the Duplasses some questions? If you want to line up over at the microphone there. I can see you with your white shirt there, sir.
Yes, and I'm wearing lightning bolts, so yeah, deal with that. Anyway,
We can't deal with it. Next question.
Oh, no.
All right.
Now, I live in Wellington, New Zealand now, and we're working on building a screen co-op. And what you guys were talking about is like when you say, where we go, when you say you keep your budgets down low, under 100 grand, how do you guys deal with keeping the crew and everybody at a certain level? Do you give the crew a back end as well to work at a lower level?
Yeah, we have lots of different models, and not to bore the shit out of everybody with the semantics, but
Yeah.
the ethos is the lower you make, lower budget you make the movie for, the more equity you can afford to hand out to your cast and crew. So when we were making an independently funded movie, everyone who shows up on our set, whether it's the fourth PA, has at least some equity stake in the movie. And we like that family environment of doing things. And one model in particular that I can advise on a little bit, which I think is good, is any movie that you make under $200,000, there's a necessary SAG agreement that says you have to pay those actors at least $100 a day. So there's a minimum there. So a lot of times when we're making movies at that budget level, what we'll do is we'll pay everybody on set, whether you're an actor, a director, a PA, a caterer, whatever, everybody makes $100 a day. So it's the creative communism thing. Yeah. And then depending on what you bring to the movie and how much time you spend on the movie, you get a much bigger weighted back end. So for instance, if you happen to nab a movie star who comes into your movie, you really have to like give them some back end because they're doing that, and your editor who's going to spend 3 months versus your PA who's only there for 3 weeks should get more, vice versa.
Yeah. And would you guys be willing to come to New Zealand and do some projects? Because that's kind of why we're here. Is to
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, the way that Jay is joking, but he's not joking.
Yeah.
The way that we make stuff is so different from the way that everybody makes stuff. Like, there are big movies that go to New Zealand and they save so much money by doing that. For us, as soon as we fly down our crew members, we've already blown our budget. So for us, we kind of got to stay around
So
here.
you guys stick with the same crew project after project, or were you willing to work with other crew over there?
How hard are you going to pitch us?
Just a question. Anyways,
Yeah.
thanks for your time.
Cheers.
Hi. I was curious when you guys started realizing that it was like a partnership that you guys had rather than you both pursuing your own like tracks with filmmaking.
I was about 7. Mark was about 4. I mean, we genuinely have always been two brothers just trying to make something good. And it took us a long time to make something good,
Guys, these cushions.
both movies and music. And honestly, I feel like we're still two brothers trying to make something good. It's very, very hard to make a great movie or a great TV show. Takes every ounce of our being, and that's just kind of still how we see it. We have to have titles now for studios and for union purposes, but that's really just how we see it.
Yeah, and I would say to that end, I mean, it is a very complex process, needless to say, working so closely with someone, you know, and Jay and I have our own marriage with each other and our marriages with our wives, and we're literally writing a book about the complexity of what it's been like with us for the last 30 years. But at the end of the day, for us, it's just it just feels very hard. Like, we know guys who put on their baseball hats and chew gum and just blaze through directing movies with ultimate confidence. And sometimes they make really incredible movies doing that. We just don't know how to do that. We need people to lean on. So it's really not a question of whether we like it or not. We need it.
Thank you.
Before you go, sir, I just wanted to ask, you know,
What are you
I've
doing,
never
dude? You're
heard-
hogging the whole thing.
Dude, you know, you guys are like the only ones I've ever heard, like siblings who just, I always hear you talk about that you don't really fight, but I don't think I've ever heard you guys talk about how you guys work as far as, do you know of any like strengths or weaknesses that you have that automatically it just makes sense why you guys are a team?
Yeah, and those are variable things too. They're not empirical, you know. We talk about this a lot of, like, for instance, on Togetherness, where we write all the episodes, we direct all the episodes, I'm in the show, Jay's prepping like crazy when I'm acting, like, we're just exhausted and overwhelmed. So we show up on set for like an 8 a.m. call, and we look at each other, and within a few seconds, we immediately know who has it today and who kind of doesn't. And that person tends to step forward a little bit and take the lead. And so they're maybe like doing more of the marching orders and organizing with the cast. And then the other person is kind of laying back and watching. And something great happens, which is that leadership person is using his positive energy and, you know, good sleep to make the thing move forward. But the person laying back will catch all these things that the one with the marching orders won't catch because he's just too busy and there's too much energy taking care of people. So that little yin and yang happens quite a bit, and really, over the years, we've kind of developed the skills to be in either position depending on how fussy we are that day.
But in general, I would say Mark's better at getting stuff up and going, like getting things moving, and I'm probably a little better at closing.
Yeah, like the runner who goes out in the Olympics and like runs the first lap really fast to pace everybody, and then he starts sweating and crying and like trails off. That's me around noon on set.
We now return to our regularly scheduled programming.
Thanks, guys. My question is on behalf of my wife, who only has an interactive pass and can't get him to the film panel.
That's terrible. Where is she?
She's sitting watching a simulcast out in the lobby.
That's awful. Hi. What's her name?
It's Diana Dickinson from Des Moines, Iowa. And in
Diana Dickinson
Hi.
from Des Moines, Iowa. Come on down.
bring her in. Let's see what she's won. So in
A new car.
in 1998, she was a writer for a startup called Garden.com.
Yeah.
Doug Jimerson, Lisa, and Cliff Sharples. She claims you made a documentary.
She's full of shit.
Lies.
Diana, do not come on down. Stay right where you are.
So there is no documentary.
No, there is.
We made a documentary about gardening
Yeah.
in 1998.
We were editors in Austin in the mid-90s. This is how we kind of made our living, is we would edit like all the cheap indie movies. We wouldn't make money doing that. And then we would edit like corporate gigs. Like I edited at a church television show for a while. Jay procured us this amazing job of doing this documentary for Garden.com where they, I mean, no offense, Diana, grossly overpaid us.
In retrospect, very underpaid.
In retrospect, very underpaid.
At
but
the
at the time,
time,
we
it
were like,
was-
this is more money than we've ever seen.
We're gonna take all this money and
Yeah.
make a terrible movie with it.
And that's what we did. We paid all our friends really well, and then Jay and I walked away with like 60 grand of profit or something. And we said, let's go make our dream feature film. And we shot a movie called Vince Del Rio about a runner from South Texas that was kind of modeled after Rocky. And we edited it together, and it was a steaming pile of shit.
I just want to reference though that like after a year of nonstop work on a featured documentary,
Yeah.
you and I both cleared $60,000.
Yeah.
And thought we were
We were
rich.
like, we killed it. And then we blew all of that money, and then we went back and made a $3 short film, and that was the movie that got into Sundance. And this is life. So
how does one get to view the documentary?
I have no idea.
you know
man.
what? I think it exists on a beta tape
I got a
in
beta
our parents'
SP
house.
in my parents' basement right now.
I'll give you my card.
Okay,
Alright.
good. Fair enough.
Hi there. I was just wondering, how did you guys decide to originally cast yourselves in your own movies, and then you decided to keep casting yourselves as you created more movies?
Why do you ask?
Well, I'm just wondering. I just made a movie with my brother,
Yeah.
and he acted, and
Yeah.
and we're both kind of interested in acting
Yeah.
and directing at the same time. So,
Do you think we maybe should have made a different choice or something?
I
I just wonder if there's anything beneath the
But,
question that we want to talk
you know,
about.
just like more involved in the creative process.
No,
or
I understand.
you wanna-
Yeah.
yeah.
It was
Thanks.
functional at first.
Yeah, I mean, it started when our dad bought the Panasonic VHS camera with the separate VTR in 1981. I was older and I could work it, and Mark would do whatever I said.
I was young, dumb, and full of cum, and I was a hot leading man. Jay put me in front of that camera, and we never looked back, bro.
I said, "Show me the magic, baby." And he put on that karate gi inspired by Karate Kid 1.
Yep.
Kicked a cigarette out of the neighbor's hand, protected his house, and finished it off by lifting weights.
Yep. That's a real movie, by the way.
That's
just
a real
so you
movie.
know.
Yeah.
I wish he was kidding.
Yeah, honestly, it is that simple that I started shooting Mark, and that's the first movie that we got into Sundance. Was a $3 short film shot on 311 West Mary in South Austin, and
311A. It was a duplex.
311A. It was the bottom floor of a duplex. And we got into Sundance, and we just didn't have the resources to hire other people. And by the time we started really making feature films, Mark was a damn good actor, and I had become a pretty good camera operator, and that's really where it was.
Yeah, we're a fan of that approach just functionally as you're getting started out because, while you might have access to a great actor and you can hire them, great. But if you have access to someone who might not be that much of a better actor than you are, say, as the filmmaker, the added value of you being in it is that if the scene itself is not working, you have the ability to improvise, shuck and jive, move things around because you are probably the filmmaker, screenwriter, director, editor, everything. So having that autonomy and that control inside of the scene can be very helpful, particularly when we didn't know what we were doing enough in the early stage. So Jay could talk to me in the middle of the scene and be like, that's not working, that's feeling really spot on and expositional. Shake that around, try it a different way. And it's nice to just be your own tool in the side of it.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know what the fuck we were doing, So a lot of people think if you don't know what you're doing, well, let's just hire the best DP I can get and the best actors I can get. And that did not work for us, and we've seen a lot of people go down that road, and everyone's had that experience where you're working with a DP who's way above your pedigree, and the guy's just thinks you're a doofus the whole time,
They won't suffer your foolery.
And so we knew, I guess, subconsciously that we were going to have to figure this out along the way, and having Mark be there and having Mark's girlfriend, Katie, at the time, be there on puffy chair, who was patient with us and could help allow us to find our way. That was a huge part of the process.
Yeah, you don't want to do that in front of Marissa Tomei. That won't go well. Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey, what's up, Mark? My name's Calvin. I'm a filmmaker from Dallas.
What about
My
me?
brother's sitting right here, dude.
Oh, hey, man. Mark, Jay, both of you guys.
Dude, Aaron's sitting right here.
You cut me off. You didn't give me time.
No offense.
There's a
Let me
whole
start
bevy of
over.
people back here working their ass off for your...
Hello, Mark, Jay, and Aaron. You didn't even let me finish. I'm a filmmaker from Dallas, and you talked earlier about you guys were at that point where you're making a bunch of really shitty short films, and then eventually you got to the point where people wanted to pay you for your ideas. And then you expanded past that. But I'm at that point where I'm just making a bunch of shitty short films, and I'm trying to figure out
God bless you for admitting it.
what's the process to get to that next level? Because
Keep making shitty short films until one of them doesn't suck one day.
I was really hoping you
That
would
is
say
it.
that.
That is it. And don't decide yourself whether you think they suck or not. Let other people who are not your mom decide that for you. Because even when Mark and I made the first film, look, tiny hint is that the first film that we made that was really good happened to be something that had happened to me the day before we made it. And we as brothers giggled about, cringed about it and then giggled about it privately. Special things that we share, our sense of humor, what is unique about us. That was what made the breakthrough possible, I think. So just mining what is special about you and your friends and your loved ones is certainly going to be quicker leading you there. But I think it's hard for people to decide what they're going to be as an artist. I think when people have really strong ideas, like we wanted to be the Coen brothers in the 90s, didn't work out. To decide that it doesn't really happen, and that's when you sidetrack yourself constantly. So just try tons of stuff, make it really, really cheap, and hopefully one day they won't suck. I was 29 years old when I made that first movie, and I was like about to lose my mind. It was the reason why we made it is I was like, I gotta move on, and Mark was like, no, we're gonna make something today. Come up with something. And I was like, well, we don't have a 16mm film camera, we don't have crew. I was still stuck in that mindset. And Mark was like, we have mom and dad's home video camera, let's just shoot it. So we just came up with the idea right then and there, what we could create with the materials that we had available.
I was very inspiring to Jay at the time. And I had zero ideas, too, which was the best part about that. I was like, we're making a movie today. He's like, great. And I was like, you got to figure out what that's about. Because you're the older one, and you're smart.
See, he's good at starting shit up.
Yeah, and in fairness, I was here last year at South by Southwest, and I gave this keynote speech that was like an hour long, very specifically walking through the minutia of the steps to go from nowhere, making shitty short films, and how to build like a little empire. It ended up turning way more Tony Robbins than I wanted it to be, but it's very preachy and didactic. If you want to see the process, it's all in there. It's on YouTube. You can look it up.
All right, thank you.
Sort of building on that last question, I'm a film festival programmer, and my question for you guys is, how do you tell somebody they've made a shitty short film, but not tell them that to quit? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is the best way to give really honest feedback to a filmmaker about what you see in the work that is genuine and interesting and fresh, and what isn't working?
I think you got to get personal. You can't do it in a one-liner or an email or anything like that. I just literally yesterday, some kid that works with us made a short film, and it's not good because it's real hard to make a good short film. But it had the nugget of greatness in there. So I just spent an hour with him, and I watched the film with him, and I basically just talked him through what I thought could make things better, and shared as much of like my cognition about like, because you have this very specific example now about how this could move towards something else. And he is going to reshoot it, and he'll probably have to reshoot that too as well. And people are resistant to doing that because I think we all have this like myth that we're going to like wake up and take a shit and a great movie's going to come out. There's like a weird myth about it.
That happened to me once, actually.
It did?
Yep.
What movie was that?
It's on Netflix.
But yeah, I think it has to.
You're in a tough spot because you can't respond to 3,000 submissions that way,
right.
obviously. So
you could just say keep going.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I don't know.
Keep going, everybody.
yeah.
Hey Jay, hey Mark, my name is Fahad. I wonder if you're talking about Creep, because that was one of my favorite movies that you've done on Netflix.
It's not a piece of feces.
The Take a Shit movie?
No. That was one of my favorite. That was the first movie I watched of yours. That was before I watched.
I'm glad you liked it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just for your information, you can't take a shit and it turns into a movie. It's not possible.
I've only done it once, so it's not. Yeah.
So I was going to ask, how much of you, I know you guys improvise a lot, how much of your comedy is actually written on a script, and how much of it is improvised, completely on the set?
Yeah, every movie we make is wildly different. Mm-hmm. So Creep was a 5-page outline that we started shooting with. We shot for 6 days. The movie was terrible. And we then went back and reshot like 70% of it. That movie was terrible. So we reshot that movie over and over and over again. Just a raw outline, chasing
It's so easy, guys.
Yeah, so easy. On a different kind of movie like Cyrus or Jeff Lives at Home, it's 100% airtight, full lockdown script that has gone through the studio system and the development process. When we get on set, we encourage our actors to loosen up the lines that they are saying, but still stay within the narrative structure of here's where we're starting A, we're going to B to C to D, so that improvisation. It's not going on rants. It's actually staying well within the narrative confines of the scene. Just try and find ways for them to re-say the lines so it can feel more natural and organic. So that's a kind of a swing of how things go. But every movie's different. The movie that we made, The One I Love, which has a lot of scenes and a lot of technical detail, was actually shot from an outline, but it was a detailed 40-page outline. Every script point was nailed down except for the dialogue. So it varies.
Thank you guys so much.
Hey there. You guys are amazing. I watched.
Great question. Next question, please. Thank you.
See
I
you
just want to
later.
stop. No, okay.
I watched The Puffy Chair 3 times before I embarked upon a 7-day filmmaking experience, making a film from New York to Iowa for $3,000. And I just have to say that that film gave me the confidence to feel like that could actually happen, making a film with my friends on that scale. My question is, getting to the point you have, I mean, having a show like Togetherness on HBO, have you found a way to harness and keep that kind of independent filmmaking mentality that you're able to have making a film for $3,000 with your friends at that level? And what has it been like working with actors on the scale that you are now?
It's definitely different when you're making, when you have $20 million on your shoulders and you're making a movie. It's hard to have that unbridled freeness about it. But, we still hire a lot of our friends, and Mark and I still are just two dudes making stuff. And I think the short answer to that question is the question that we always ask ourselves and have since the very beginning is, what do you want to see next? And that comes in the conceiving phase, writing, shooting, editing, everything. And even on big studio stuff, if something doesn't feel right, we question it. And that's something that I think most people don't do. It's not comfortable to tell 75 people on your crew, sorry guys, we got to go for a walk because something's not right and we don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. This whole industry is built around this absoluteness of vision, which is bullshit for us and for a lot of people. I think the Coen brothers have absoluteness of vision. They're unique in that way.
There are a lot of people who have absoluteness of vision. It's just you don't really want to see that vision.
Yes. So we have a very fluid way of creating things, and that for us keeps it very fresh and real, because we know we're not just going on set to execute what was written. We're trying to capture the most exciting version of that spirit, and we encourage our actors to find that as well. And if we're not capturing something special, we will question it, and we will re-rig it, and we will rewrite it. We'll throw a wrench into the scene, and that kind of keeps us fresh all the time. And it's scary as shit to work that way too. But I think, I don't know, that's what we're obsessed with, is realness and feeling like anything could happen. I think that's probably maybe what we're doing that's somewhat unique. Is people feel like anything could happen in this moment. And the truth is, because that's how our sets are, is that anything really can happen, and that's the only way we know how to create that feeling. So when you're living in that chaos, it's uncomfortable, but it definitely is new all the time.
And the only thing logistically I would add to that is there are some little tricks you can do on big budget sets to kind of make it flow more smoothly and make it feel smaller. Like when you yell cut on a big set, every department head rushes in to make sure that their particular interest in that scene is taken care of so that they don't lose their job when the studio sees the dailies. So you're going to have people coming in to fix the flowers and fix the carpet and fix the actress's hair, even though she might be crying and in the middle of a huge moment. They're going to come in and do that unless you say, nobody comes in this room unless we say it's okay and when the time is okay. So we have a no running in the room policy. We don't yell cut between takes a lot of times. We just say hold, and then it keeps everybody out of the room and everybody quiet and respectful, and then we reset everybody to make sure like the mood is right and move things around. So a lot of times we run 5, 6, 7 takes in a row without cutting, and that kind of helps keep that flow together. We try to use that big support team a lot in pre-production to get things rolling ahead of time. Pre-light as many rooms as possible so that when we walk in, it's ready to go, but they're not there lighting in between takes and things like that. So there's a lot of little tricks you learn throughout the way to kind of make it feel more intimate.
I do have one quick follow-up, if I'm allowed. With that freedom that you've found within how you work with your actors, does that ever cause a problem in the editing room? And do you guys work with 2 cameras a lot when it comes to shooting?
Yeah, we almost always have 2 cameras. Sometimes we have 3 cameras, and it would be a problem in the editing room if Mark and I were not like totally obsessive about continuity and story. I mean, if we're redoing a scene in the moment, we are building it in our own heads and making sure that we have anything. I mean, in general,
We
it's
worked
like,
as editors for a long time, so our brains kind of work that way, and we usually track it.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm huge fans of your work, both on Togetherness and then your performance on Transparent. And,
Thank you so much. Next question.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
I'm also a part of a sibling director team. My sister and I work together. And my question is, how much of your own life and personal experiences do you bring into your work, I guess particularly in Togetherness? And also, how do you kind of do that in a way where you're able to bring your own personal experience, whether it's super specific, but then also expanding it to just create this obviously fictional character?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the 2 most deeply personal pieces of filmmaking or TV that we made would be The Puffy Chair and Togetherness, I think. Puffy Chair was very reflective of what we were going through in our 20s and being in the dating game and figuring out, are we getting married? Are we breaking up? What is this? And that whole epidemic that seemed to be happening to people in our age group. And then Togetherness is very reflective of the soup of our lives and that sort of approaching 40 phase of you're either parents and married and you've locked into your life and you miss your freedom, or you haven't locked into your life and you're like, Jesus Christ, how is this going to happen for me? I'm halfway done. That being said, a lot of the plot points in something like Togetherness, thank God, we've never had to deal with. So a lot of that stuff is sort of like made up on the plotting front, but the ideas and the core of what that show is, which is we want to be so close to people and we want to be as close as we can, and then as soon as we start to get too close, we were like, get me the fuck out of here, I need my freedom, and that is very much how we feel and how we live, and that kind of colors the whole thing.
Cool, thank you.
Hey, Jay and Mark. You guys have made a lot of stuff. I don't know if you realize that or not, but you've made a lot of cool stuff.
I'm gonna check my IMDb. Check it out.
Again, after you checked it 15 minutes ago.
And I'm sure a lot of other filmmakers here are juggling multiple projects as well, doing projects on their own and with their friends and all that stuff. So I guess, do you have any advice for how to prioritize those projects? Because I know you guys juggle a lot.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we realized by running multiple projects is that it stopped us from getting too precious. A big journey in like us becoming artists that could just like move through a piece of art is like not being too brainy or precious about it. We would overanalyze things and get concepty about things, and the more that we can just force ourselves to just make stuff and go with our instincts has been better. And I think I always encourage people when they're writing a screenplay to please have another screenplay so that you can cheat on that screenplay with. And it's always the case when you're working on your masterpiece and then you're doing this little side project, it just seems real easy. That's the one. The other one will just be this idea that's annoying to all of your friends. So yeah, I mean, I think having a lot of projects is great as long as you're not like overwhelmed, and you know that way you can also do what I was talking about before, which is you can allow them to breathe and have their own life and listen to your friends and listen to their notes when they give them to you, and like go let the ones lead that get the most traction, not the ones that you're necessarily the most fixated on.
Yeah, and I would also say know yourself a little bit too. Not everybody is a multitasker, you know, and that doesn't mean you're not good at making stuff if you can't do 4 things at a time. A lot of the filmmakers we work with are just very singular, you know, and they have to have their thing. And if you find yourself being singular, I would say try to give yourself the limit of making that singular thing something practical that can be made from a budgetary standpoint is, I think, something that people miss a lot. You know, like, I'm passionate about this. It's a period piece. with zombies on Mars. It's a $150 million movie, and I just have to write it. I'm like, God bless you. Write that movie. That's fine. But find the beating heart of that story and what it's about, and go write another one that only costs $20,000 to make with that core theme, because you'll have a little easier time getting that made.
Can you think of any specific examples of an idea that was in one project of yours that ended up in another one?
I don't know if it works that so much that way, but one thing that is like, this is embarrassing to admit, but like when we were setting about making the one I love, I was like, I love Starman so much. I love how like Jeff Bridges is like one person and then another person in there, and you're dealing with this person who's like the shadow of someone that you love, and maybe they are that or maybe they're not that. That movie's so expensive. I'm not going to be able to make anything like that. Is there a smaller version? I started thinking, I was like, oh, what if it's just like a house movie where you've got multiple versions? And because that's cheap to make. And then we brought that to a filmmaker. And like that was literally my pitch to Charlie McDowell. I was like, I loved what Starman was. There are multiples in a house. It's got to be cheap. It's got to be romantic and kind of weird. when I write it, and he did.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Hey, I feel like I should admit I'm not an aspiring filmmaker, but
You
anyway.
get out of here right now.
I'm interested in the way you engage with projects, and you said 19 out of 20 you'll maybe move forward with in some capacity, and you guys are obviously very studied in relationships, interpersonal relationships. My question's more about like dating and relationships. Is that how you approach relationships, when you were dating? Because I think the culture now is you go on a million shitty dates and don't give anybody a chance. I'm curious the ratio of 95% moving forward. Should I be giving everybody more of a chance?
So just to be clear, you would like
He's
to
asking
have
for
sex
dating
on
advice.
95% of your dates.
I think sex is easy.
And you want us to-
Relationships
No,
are
I'm kidding.
meaningful
I'm
relationships.
totally
are harder.
kidding. We unfortunately don't know anything about dating because we have been married for like 13, 14 years.
I've had like 5 girlfriends, and one of them is my wife.
Yeah. I love your question. I love the thoughtfulness and the heart behind it. I have zero idea how to answer it for you, unfortunately. And I wish I could be more helpful because you got a great spirit.
Hi. So you guys talked about your background in music. What are 3 bands that would be on your dream soundtrack? Money and rights are no object.
The interesting thing is when you're doing a show for HBO, rights to songs are a little bit cheaper because they don't have to go in theaters. So we've actually realized like we can kind of get big songs now. And like one of the first ones we went to was Fleetwood Mac. That's like a big band for us. Not only just because we just love the music and like grew up listening to it and like the weirdly polished vinyl backseats of our parents' cars growing up, but the spirit of that band and how they needed each other so badly despite the conflict, despite how any 5 of those members could have led their own band and have been good at it, but they like made the ultimate 5-person transformer and made the great band. It always appeals to us, and we always think about that when we are thinking about going off and making our solo projects. We're like, people want Fleetwood Mac, dude. They don't want that weird Lindsey Buckingham solo record. Like, nobody gives a shit about that. So that's one for me.
Stevie Nicks did pretty good.
Stevie Nicks did all right. That's a good point.
Holiday Road is a great soundtrack song for what it's worth.
Okay,
That's
there
true.
you go.
Damn, deep cut, Lindsey Buckingham. I don't know. I'm listening to Fleet Foxes right now. But it's weird because a lot of times what you similar to questions I've answered are that you get real obsessed with songs and you try and force a song into a movie and everyone watches it and they're like, what the fuck are you doing, man? This makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah. We're not very bullish about jamming our stuff in. Every once in a while it works out great, but
For instance, while writing our script, The Dodecapentathlon, we listened to John Parr's Man in Motion, the theme song from St. Elmo's Fire, over and over to inspire us on the sporting montages. Song didn't fit so well in the movie.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do you guys do you make any music anymore?
Just around the house with our kids. That's what we do. Yeah.
I thought I should say something about the relationship thing. And I think you probably get this from our stuff, but I think relationships are really hard, and that's the point. That's what I would like to say about that. Okay.
Would you both please share your most memorable moment from the last, I guess, 15 years or whatever your career has spanned?
Our
Or
most
sorry,
memorable
since you were-
moment
yeah.
from however long our career has spanned. Yeah, no, that's.
Well, I guess like
No,
since you
there,
were 7
yeah.
or 8.
There's definitely some stuff. I remember specifically being in the Alamo Draft House in 2005 with the puffy chair here, and we grew up in Austin trying to get our short films into South by Southwest. We have so many rejection letters, and we would just go see all of our favorite indie films over and over again all around town at the Dobie and at the Alamo, and that's where we got our film education, was here. And then we were sitting in that theater, and we were just busy and stressed out because it was our first feature, and we weren't really thinking about the monumental nature of what was happening. And the lights went down, and then like our movie came up on the screen, and I was like, I'm sitting in the seat in which we watched Buffalo 66, in which we watched all of our favorite movies, and our movie is playing on the screen, and it was very, big
And
moment.
a quarter of it was being projected on the ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all part of that's indie cinema, bro.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Mine was probably when we sat down at the library theater at Sundance to watch Puffy Chair screen the first time at Sundance. Because that was truly, like, we never dreamed we would get a short film into Sundance, much less a feature. But we had exceeded all of our wildest dreams in that moment. And the screening was, like, incredibly well. I mean, it was a $15,000 movie, and there were 4, 5, $12 million movies screening at that festival. And it was a movie made with, just family and friends. And Mark said, it's probably never going to get better than this. And he was right. It's gotten as good in different ways, but it's never been better than that moment.
We have blazers, but we don't have our youth. It's hard, guys.
Unfortunately, these two are going to be our last two questions. Don't worry, you're already standing there. You're good.
Hi. My question is, pretty much for every movie pitch that you guys have had, you were saying we keep it cheap, we make it quick, that kind of thing. And back to your Starman point where you were like, it's going to be like Starman, but it's this instead. Yeah. Has there ever been an idea that you guys have had that you've kicked around for a long time that you've really just never been able to parse down, but you still keep, I guess, seeking it out, like your version of Dune kind of thing?
We do have ideas, and they're not, we can't get them because they're too expensive. We can't get them because we are creatively not capable of cracking them. And so we have a document full of like 100 different movie ideas that we're like, this would be so great. Why can't we figure out how to make this work? We have so many of those little things, and sometimes they come around and we mature as artists and figure them out. Sometimes they come around as subplots in another movie. But yeah, we have so many ideas of things that we feel like, God, this would be so great if we could just figure out how to crack it, and we're just not there yet.
We did have the script for Jeff Who Lives at Home about 6 years before we made it, and we knew that we could not afford it because of the bridge scene with children in the water and a car going off a bridge and all that stuff. But instead of like pursuing it relentlessly and becoming fundraisers for 6 years, we just let it sit on the shelf, which turned out to be the best thing possible because 7 years later, we had, I guess, whatever, the approval to make a $10 million movie. And I would recommend that as well. Don't try to make a movie that's almost impossible for you to make where you're at, because then you will become a fundraiser and not a filmmaker.
Yeah. It's good. It's a good point to bring up. There's a misconception about what Jay and I do, which is so many people, they hear we make movies cheaply and they're like, great. So here's my script. And it's like a $50 million movie. And they're like, I would love to make this for like 15 grand like you guys do it. You want to do it? And we're like, you can't take that big movie and make it small. You have to engineer a movie correctly to be made cheaply and on a small level. And what we think is a terrible idea is taking that 30-day movie and trying to jam it in 18 days. That's awful. What we actually recommend is taking an 8-day movie and making it over the course of 11, so that you can shoot 8 to 10-hour days, have the breath to mess up, let your crew get some sleep and like you because you didn't drive them hardcore. And so we try to have actually short but gentle shoots that are 20% longer than you would normally do, but it's been designed so small that you have that luxury.
Can I give you guys a freebie? So your self-proclaimed shitty Rocky-esque movie?
Yes.
How about a Creed-style reboot?
Oh, yeah.
That's a
Nope.
freebie.
Nope.
Last question.
This
Better be a
feels
good one.
like a lot of pressure, yeah. I don't know if it is, but Mark, I first saw you on The League, and I know you haven't really talked about it much, so I was wondering if you could speak to how you got involved with that, because I feel like it's so separate from the rest of your work, which is more cerebral, that it actually took me a while to connect that like you were the same person.
Yeah, it is kind of separate from what we do, and it's kind of like a thing that I did that like helped me like quite honestly like buy my house and like take care of my family, and I'm really, really appreciative of it. But I feel like let's end on a question that's about us, and let's do something different that kind of includes all of us. You don't have to do that because you came up with the League, but let's do one more.
I want to make it one of you guys. I've been jawing enough up here.
And you don't even have to get up to the mic. You can even throw your hand up. Yes.
What's next for you two?
Well, we're making a bunch of original movies for Netflix right now, and we really like that company. They're very good to us. They did The Puffy Chair with us a long time ago. And then we're making a bunch of TV shows for HBO. We have Togetherness there. We have a show called Animals that just started airing that's been really fun. It's a show that we actually made independently and something that we're really interested in. Jay's got in the middle of shooting Transparent right now. We mentioned a little bit earlier we're writing a book for the first time about kind of who we are and what we've gone through, which is great because we kind of don't know what we're doing and kind of feel like a 13-year-old kid picking up a guitar for the first time and just messing up all over the place, and the learning curve is huge, and that's been really, I mean, we're getting our asses handed to us, but it's really fun and inspiring.
In the immediate future, we're trying not to puke from too much queso consumption.
Yes.
I know at South by you're like torn so many different directions, but if you get a chance, make sure you mark down your schedule. Asperger's are us and Rainbow Time. Thanks so much for coming out once again.
Thank you, guys.
Jay and Mark.
Thank you, Aaron Hillis. Yeah.